you do?
He's calm. He's calm.
Is he okay?
He's
Is he
okay.
all right?
I just gave him a little bit of deputy.
Mover is Chief Melvin Hardy. Seconder is Wayne Sauer. So we have a talking stick. All right.
That's the big one.
Okay.
Because you gotta use this maybe sometimes.
I hear you.
Way up, cause then.
I work till 10 to 1 in the morning, right, Ray? I work till 10 to 1 this morning. Oh, no. Ken said this is mine.
Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
Little bit more of the chief circle. We finished. Everybody all went around yesterday, but Grand Council Chief and Deputy wanted to see if there's any questions or comments from citizens, and if there's anybody that So registration tells me we have the majority of the GIMAs in attendance, and that we can now proceed with our agenda. I want to ask Grand Council Chief if you had any comments. But however, the chief circle that we had yesterday, we began at 1 o'clock and I think we finished at 6. We had an awful lot of opportunity to hear all of what's going on and in our communities, to complement each other and to understand we had similar issues, whether it was water, whether it was murdered missing women, whether it was young people, and what was our engagement. So we wanted to give the opportunity to anyone in the audience, anyone on the webcast, to ask a question that they may have gotten or wanted to ask from yesterday's session. So if there's anyone from the citizens, you can now come forward and ask your question. And I really need you to pay attention. We really want the chiefs to be able to hear themselves talk. You know, when I went to the school the other day, you know what the teacher does when she wants the children to listen? They put up their hand like this. They put their hand up like this, so it's our sign to be quiet so we can hear who's talking. I know you can't see me behind this barrier, but I see there is a question, and I'll ask my co-chair to bring the talking stick over there and the mic. I see you, I hear you. So I'm going to recognize the speaker, Angus Toulouse, at the mic. This one?
Ani,
The mic. Turn on the mic.
No, we can't hear Angus.
Ani, bonjour, ndino ay magnadak, mlakajebawak, gain nanga, miigwech, gainin the kit, gay you, Anishinabek, akskazot, gay no, chickajep, gay mabidabit, gay, Jesus, gay miigwech shot, mina, mabadebinch get, gay manda gishkak, mina, giam the ming, miigwech, denak, miigwech get, and the kid gay manda. The cousin kinawego I went to sing gamin going gay de bench get to in a cousin gay we not madzing gay manti nishnabe odzing nikia miigwech gay in the kit wakaganan minorish gima manti eben jabat minor nishnabek manti eben jabat miigwech den nim gay gino give a week me going manti gay when I give the gushning ejinaga or westnaga minorish the aben nanga mino wabang miigwech chendam kina giam min guk mino miigwech chendam gay ejinaga gay gideb zinchian bangi chen gay non dogwa kinon don akiri gay you ejem namajish kaing mamu ezing mishvigo geni abdek Wakidan. Pane gibinat madzinish Pane gibikinomaga ge Nikia wajinishnabe adzit. Manden wing gebekish. Pane ge jiraguge ginwemin manda. Muge Panegan wing. Ikendandish. Ge gabishwabak. Ge unisek manda. Sen wing. Jiragumaba, a wapshkiet, keep kumgunan manda, anyway, Gimami tosh we go on it, Mambe, Ishkim Madzit, Gunashkin in a Jinago Gega Kidet, the Kinoma, this commander. Ishwing a P10 man, then the Kendan go wash in a snave, man, he Kinoma, Ishkim Madzit, Mishkuget, Abdekuge no without the manda, gay in the wing. Kashwigo mem digego manda need bad the zine. Migo what bad the man ban go mem digego ejen wending. Panego gibi kenda anan ejen wending. Ye shkon gana node kinongo chigi tenon. Kiamen kinongo chigi amen. Kaya shkon gana gitest non tam. Kino gina manda ke gid bendaran. Kino gina kaznan manda. Kino where go got temga ki net Anishinabek. Inishnabe odzimen when again agdwen daran manda kino where go gamin going we not doing ming. Me gin it kashi eyeing, me gin it gay Mabanishnabe again Jitagnage ash get we not doing dan kino where go west sea kino where go gamin going gay when we the causing gay Nick one the causing. Me gay gabje Nayat gay Mabanishnabe, Paneo gitem got gay one nezit, gay pin bandom dung, gay. He went shishin, gay keep kung, gay pin mandasa here, skeke, ishpin skeke bandom dung. Kino where he went shishin nebe, he nishin, kawem kachgero treatment facility or treatment filtration, in the casino, kino where when I norgme manda nebe. Mishmanda and when ding. Minong the cricket. Abdishkun Nikweshag Nashim Tan de Bushmanda. Gainjida. Morning, everyone. I just want to talk about the relationships that we've always had and And I did see Isidore, so I know there's translation somewhere, I think, happening. So I don't need to repeat it all, okay? But I do want to talk about the original relationships that we've always had. And I have to, first of all, I guess, introduce myself. Angus Toulouse. I'm a council member with the Anishinabek Council. And I happen to also work for what's called Mamwezwa in the North Shore Tribal Council. But I want to speak as a citizen, because I know the chief would have asked me, or if I would have asked him, I should say, if I could speak, and he would have allowed me as one of his colleagues sitting around the council table with him. But as a citizen, we don't have these kind of forums because this isn't the initial relationship that the Union of Ontario Indians was born. It was chiefs coming together and saying, we need to work together. We need to find a way to influence or at least have better policies that impact and resource our First Nation communities. There was this recognition that the federal government and the provincial government was not recognizing our rights, was taking anything and everything that they could take away from us, which was within our traditional territories, our resources, and our waters, and our lands, and everything that the Creator had given us, and we had acknowledged that was ours to maintain and sustain ourselves from. But what's happened over the course of many years is the federal government has done anything and everything to remove the treaties away or set them aside and have brought in, as what we know is called the Indian Act, which is what we live by and which is what made us living our poverty. It is the only piece of legislation. We're the only peoples in the world that are legislated from the time we're born to the day we die. And it's such an archaic piece. We all know this stuff. We all know also what happened with the residential school, with our brothers and sisters, our parents, grandparents, and their parents. We know the impacts. We know what has to take place. There has to be reconciliation. We know, and I hear, that the most troubling aspect of the whole residential school experience of what I've heard is the loss of our language and the loss of our culture. If there was anything that somebody could point to, and it's that. We know those things. So we've come through living in poverty with the Indian Act. We see in the early or late 80s, government's attempt to reconcile and the government's attempt to bring newness to some of these treaties. And they had various attempts at, from their own perspective, policies that they said would assist and fund resourcing initiatives and projects of First Nation communities that were looking at researching and exploring a new relationship. There was policies called comprehensive community-based self-government. Right now, there's a policy called inherent rights policy. These policies really aren't real reconciliation as far as I can see. It is the game in town that the federal government had in the 80s and in the 90s, and it really hasn't changed that much in relation to wanting to support First Nation leaders in saying we want a new relationship and we want to build it with our communities along the way, pushing it. This whole process of the inherent rights policy, this restoration of jurisdiction, is flawed. And I don't fault the leadership. I was part of that leadership that said, let's look at this, let's research this, let's see what we can get out of this. That was quite a few years ago. And when you look across the country, how many groups, because it's the same policy, it's the same national federal policy, How many groups have succeeded? And there hasn't been very, very many. BC's been at it for 30-some years trying to get treaties. Never mind reconciling a treaty. They're trying to get a treaty established. And it's that policy that the federal government's relied upon and they've used to fund these activities, and it doesn't work. And the reason why it does not work, it does not contemplate the need to have forums like this, where it's the citizens that gets up and essentially say, how does this work? How is the relationship going to work? We don't have enough forums for our citizens, and this process wasn't built really on ensuring that our citizens would drive it and our citizens would be the ones that would say, here are the parameters, councils, that we would like you to operate from, recognizing what this inherent rights policy says and what it does. So I'm just wanting to raise it from a citizen point of view, a perspective that they would love an opportunity to ask questions. They would love an opportunity to actually would have driven the process, but the process doesn't allow it, and that's the federal policy. And I don't fault the Grand Chief, I don't fault the chiefs, I don't fault the Chiefs Committee. I was there. But there's a time when I think the leadership needs to say, okay, we did some good research, we did some really good work. Maybe it's time to we recognize that that just isn't good enough because it didn't include our people. Our people need to be a big part of this whole process. They need to drive it. That's really what I wanted to leave with, and again, I really do appreciate the hard work that the leadership endures, does, continues to envision, and there is a lot of work, and there is a lot to be said about working together and about these kind of forums of sharing. What is the best practices? What is the best way to work together? What is the best way forward? And each community has that capacity now. Each community needs to grow its capacity to ensure it can deal with all aspects of whatever goes on in the First Nation community and around them. So again, I do say Chimigwech, Grand Chief, Deputy Grand Chief, and Chiefs for the continued hard work that you continue to do, and I know you will continue to do, but sometimes these policies don't do it for us. Miigwech.
So, and to say miigwech, Angus. So is there any other comments or questions from any of the observers that listened to the Chief's Circle yesterday? We don't often get the chance to fulfill our role as observers, and this is what we would like to start to ensure that we could engage in the Grand Council. So Marcy's waving at me over there. So there's somebody that has joined us on the webcast and has a question. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcy over there.
Good morning. My name is actually Laura Barrios, and I work at the Anishinabek Nation. We had a question come through our Facebook page, Elaine Trudeau, and she said, has there been anything that came out of my meeting I had back in March with Minister Catherine McGarry from the Ministry of Natural Resources regarding Indigenous firefighters? Can this be brought up during the Assembly tomorrow for a follow-up? Chimigwech.
So, and to say thank you for that, and for sure we will have that question brought forward during our agenda today, and I'll just try and find the time for that. Thank you, Laura. Is there any other comments or questions from the citizens?
Bonjour. Miss Kogijing Dijkas Michikan Dodam. Anjana Donjaba. The way Magaraduk. First of all, bonjour to all our sacred items that are here in this circle here. Bonjour to all our guests from all our chiefs that have gathered here today. These past few days to the Amjinang territory. I was listening to, I wasn't here yesterday, and I'm really glad for the technology that we do have now. The webcast that we had, and was able to view what was going on and hear the words of our chiefs through the Facebook, I guess that's what. So anyway, it was good to hear all the different discussions, all the things that were on the chiefs' minds, and it's good to see that grand entry. I remember a long time ago when we first. I used to take my father around to the meetings, and this wasn't really presented in the way that we were supposed to a long time ago. It was just a gathering of chiefs and the beginning of the meetings. There was no prayers. There might have been a prayer to start it off, but we didn't really have our bundles and things like that. And it was good to see that our older chiefs saying that we need to have this. We need to bring this back into the circle again. We have a good elder here that looks after these things. A good friend of mine here, Gordon, and it's really good to see him too. One of the things that I noticed or I heard in the circle was about the nuclear waste that they want to bury around the Great Lakes area. Me and my cousin, who was a very good environmental person that traveled many places, me and my cousin Ron, we used to go to these nuclear waste management meetings, and I can't remember if it was up in the Kenora area or the Sault Ste. Marie area. One of those meetings, I'm pretty sure it might have been Kenora area. Anyways, we had all the pro people that were talking about how good it is and what benefits it's going to be to bury these nuclear waste bundles within the Great Lakes area. The millions of dollars they said that the communities could use he says it could take you out of your poverty. He said we can help you with this money, and they were just talking like that, you know. And like how far is $3 million going to go? That's the figure that I heard around the table at that time. How far was I going to take them out of poverty? So I listened. I sat and I listened, and I had to say something. They had a panel of elders there, and they were introduced as, some of them were introduced as the shaking tent elders, shaking tent people, and they said that they took they had a shaking tent ceremony, and they said it was okay. It was okay to bury these bundles within Mother Earth. Well, we had 7 shaking tent elders within that group listening to this panel. And they said, well, we'll do our ceremony. He says, not your panel, we'll do our ceremony. He says, and we'll ask Mother Earth if that's a good thing to do. Before that happened, because it was going to be during the evening time when they had this ceremony being done, I was looking in the circle, because we were all gathered in a circle like this. And in the middle of that circle was the Treaty 3, very, very old drum. It was an old one. But it was dressed beautiful. It was dressed in white cloth. It had a white hide on it, and it had the ribbons, and it had the cloth around it. It had the four women, the 4 posts holding up that drum. And it was adorned with the ribbons and the cloth and the eagle feathers. And it just looked shining out there, just looked beautiful. And the old fellows from the Treaty 9 area sang some songs on there, beautiful songs. They did their pipe ceremony around that Mother Earth, that drum. So I sat there and I listened. And I had to say something. I had to get up and say something. So I told that nuclear waste management team, I says, look at that drum out there. I said, look how beautiful it is. I said, in the middle of us. I said, that's the representative, what we say, of Mother Earth. That is the heartbeat of Mother Earth out there. I said, what is going to happen if you drill a hole in the top of that Mother Earth there, that Duwagan? I said, what's going to happen if you drill a hole there? I said, you start beating the drum. I said, it's going to sound different. I said, it's going to sound not the same as it originally did when we put it out there. I said, now, what would happen if you put some of that nuclear waste or anything within that Duwagan? I said, what's going to happen to that Mother Earth out there? I said, it's either going to start corroding, rotting. It's going to bore another hole towards the other side. A lot of things could happen to it, but what it's going to do is it's going to destroy. It's going to destroy that Duwagan, that Mother Earth out there. I said, that's what you're proposing to do to Mother Earth. I said, you say it's going to be safe. I said, but in fact, our land here is on a fault line. I says, you don't say that to the people, but we are on a fault line. I says, and then when the Earth does move, and especially with the fracking projects that are going on, it's going to make the Earth move. I says, those bundles will move around. I says, maybe open up. I says, and then our Great Lakes will be all good no more for our future generations, for us. I said, that's what's going to happen. I said, same as what I described with that Duwagan out there. So that's what I had to say to them there. And the elders there said that was a good analogy of to explain to them what was going to happen, what can happen. They shook my hand and said, "Miigwech for sharing that." So they did have their shaking tent ceremony, and you could feel the electricity as soon as you were coming towards that area. They did have that shaking tent ceremony, and what was told to them, those 7 shaking tent people there, was that no, for our generation, for our children, that's not a very good idea. Mother Earth does not want you to bury it around this area. So we told that to them. That was probably a good 10 years ago, somewhere around there. And now they're still thinking about doing that. They're still wanting to do that. We have the truckloads of nuclear waste being shipped from here to the U.S. as it is now, endangering the Great Lakes. What's going to happen when it does finally get into our Great Lakes? So I heard this conversation from what some of our chiefs here in the circle yesterday as I was listening, and I wanted to bring that point up. I wanted to bring up my experience of going to these meetings and saying, I really pray, for some goodness coming out of this and some clear minds as to what can happen, because what can happen, or what can happen will happen. And I want to bring that to this circle here this morning, my concerns about that. I still follow what's going on about the nuclear waste team, and I know they have to do something with it, but not around the Great Lakes, not around our drinking water. I mean, it's hard enough to drink out of those lakes as it is now. We have a lot of concerns. Our water walkers, our women that are doing this work for us. So I want to bring that to the attention for everybody and say miigwech for allowing me this time to speak and my concerns about this. Miigwech.
So I want to say miigwech. I'm going to make a third last call for anybody from the webcast or anybody from our audience observers if they'd like to speak. So I see co-chair has a speaker down there.
Ana Buju, Anin, Bernard George, Indigenous Kaj, Kikanong, and Dunjaba. Mino Gijigatna. I'd like to acknowledge all the sacred islands before us here. It's been part of our people for generations. And I'd like to acknowledge all the wisdom and all the courage. Everything that we have belongs to our next generation that follows. We're here to pass it on, the wisdom, all of the 7 grandfather teachings. Everything that we understand and learn about belongs to the younger generation and the young born. But I picked up this book over there this morning, and I listened to our speakers and our elders and the younger generation and the young ones that were here, how important it is for all of us. And I was looking through the Ipperwash Inquiry, and inside the Ipperwash Inquiry, it tells us, there's problems in this country with the government and how they deal with our people. As our previous speaker mentioned about the nuclear waste, what happens when our people are upset and they want to tell the government, you're not going to do this to us, you're not going to do this to Mother Earth or our water. Our people gather and they voice their opinions. And when their opinions are voiced, then becomes this. It becomes the police and all of the system that they have in this country surrounds the voice of our people when we stand and we let this country know that, this is who we are, this is what we love, this is what we understand, this is what we're preserving for our future generations. So inside of this oversight review, I mentioned the Ipperwash Inquirer because I was involved in what happened, and sadly back in 1995 when there was a tragic incident happened at the former Ipperwash Park. It was terrible. It was a nightmare for our people. It was a nightmare for our First Nations across this country. But yet we still stand, and we still need to voice our opinion on what the government, how they treat us. And it's because every time we stand up, it's the police that come and stand around and watch what our people do. Now they learn from their mistake of how they treated our people, not only at Ipperwash, but at Oka and all of wherever our people stand up and voice their opinion to what happens. In that Ipperwash Inquiry, I read it and I still feel sad inside of what happened to our people, and yet we still need to move forward and push that government to open the book back up and tell us this is what we're going to do for your people, because that Ipperwash Inquiry surrounds our treaties, it surrounds the burials where our people go and they tell the government, listen to who we are. It's important. You need to listen to us. And as a previous speaker that was here that mentioned the nuclear waste, I went to AFN, and at that AFN there was a nuclear display out on the floor, and I walked up and I looked at what they were planning on putting in Mother Earth, and I asked the ones that were there, I says, what is this? I says, what are you going to do with this? And he says, we're going to bury it in the ground. We're going to put it in a mine and encase it. And I said, why would you do that? I said, what's assurance that anything that you put in Mother Earth will not come out? And he says, we're going to encase it in concrete, and we're going to I said, what concrete cracks? It's like the previous speaker mentioned about our Mother Earth moves. And I said, when Mother Earth moves, I told him the same thing. I said, when Mother Earth moves, that concrete will crack. I said, and then what? I said, then you're going to destroy life as it was before you ever came here and you ever made that material. And I said, how long will it take before mankind can even touch that or get close to it? And he's told me 10,000 years. And I says, how long is that? He had no answer for me. I says, well, you better think about what you're doing and what you're going to do to your generation. I said, you're going to destroy everything that the Creator gave us. So I'd like to, inside that inquiry, it speaks about many things about what the government, how they got to reflect back to our people and what they done. It's to me, I don't really understand a whole lot of it. I know there's been some movement on it with the treaties because I have an opportunity. I was appointed to learn about our treaties in the area, so it's a new learning thing. Myself, I'm a First Nations elected council member, and so I'd just like to. I thought I would like to bring that up to the assembly here, so that we need to look at this and tell that government look back into those inquiries, the Ipperwash inquiries, because it's important to us. It's going to help us. It's going to help all of our people, because we will gather again in another place. Our people will step forward and they're going to tell this country, you can't do this to us anymore. So with all that, I'd like to say miigwech for hearing what I had to say to the assembly here, and miigwech.
Miigwech. So second last call for anybody from our citizens that would like to
We have
address
two.
the assembly.
Two.
Ani, ako so. Nani ka magwana ganin dago, ko ganin dalo them. Rom this thing any, don't you? Dan basic ni, ki mai worship which bugo. Because I last him don't show you man the Yahweh with the basic ni no stung. As we lama si bis kang we know ndang ekada. So I last him done this. I want to have one ask of the Gimai, of the chiefs here, is to think about moving forward, ni God, to use what was given to us to use to be an Anishinaabe. And one of the things I saw in here when I came here was that beautiful lodge that was built. There's so many teachings in that lodge, and a real beautiful place to be. I mean, I go when we're in those places. Me, guiding, Shaganasim, me, Kanenzina. We don't think. I mean, like may wanky be out. Is he out? We don't think that way now. It's not being. Come up. Me, mandini. That's what was given to us. So that's asked the chiefs moving forward is to set one day aside to use those lodges that are built for us to come and talk. No standing shouldn't that's all I ask of the chiefs in the future.
Miigwech. Third last call for anyone that would like to make comment, have questions for the chief circle.
Hi. My name is Mike. It's kind of scary being up here. Yesterday I heard everybody, you guys talking about a lot of things. Like you guys talked about a lot. Like you're all over the board. And I guess the things that I was thinking about was I kind of got everything all scribbled down here. And I guess what I wanted to address was, I guess, things like the language and addictions and poverty and this idea of the warriors, I guess. So I guess I'll start with the language. And I feel like this language, a lot of people talk about the residential schools and what happened and all the things that happened for our language to be lost or gone or moving on. But I kind of think of it like with addiction, something that somebody told me once about addictions was to beat that addiction is you got to walk as far down that road out as you walked in. So think of that in the terms of language. You have to do, not, I guess not do, but I mean kind of look at it that way. Like that's the road that you're looking at. How long and how hard it was for us to lose the language. And that's what you're looking at to get out of this, to get to fix that language, those language problems. And I don't know what, I don't know what the solutions are or whatever, but that's the way I feel about it. Like that's the way I look at it, is in those terms. And and even dealing with addictions and those things, like with all the like people are talking about, how do we fix this? With sort of counseling and all that sort of stuff. And something that I would like to say is that those ones in the bottle, those ones that are in there, stuck in that addiction, they're people. They're people. There's a reason why they're there. They're not bad people. They are who they are. And when I was younger, I was always, like, when I was younger, like in Toronto, you see the homeless people and they're on the street and whatever, and like I was told that they're not there doing that for themselves. I was told that they're there doing that for me. That's their life. They're living their life for me. They're doing that so I can see what they're doing. They're doing that so I can see what it looks like if I want to live that way. So that's the choice. That's that life of that addiction. That's their past. They're doing that to show these people, that's what it looks like. That addictions, they're living that hard life, not for themselves, but for everybody. So I don't know. I guess that's what I got to say about that. And I guess poverty. We're not poor. Indians aren't poor. Like, sure, there's tarps on the roof. Sure, there's shacks and stuff like that. But you look what we have here. We got the culture. We got people still speaking the language. We have all these things. We have all these resources. We have a lot. And this, the warriors, I guess I hear people talking about warriors, like people like to throw this term around. And they like to go travel far, go do their thing, and then come home. But that's just it, What are they doing at home? What are these people doing at home? Like, to have their community having tarps on their roof. To have garbage laying all over their ditches. To have whatever social problems, to have, like, no food in their neighbor's belly. Like, what are they, sure, they're going way far away to go do their thing, but when they get home, that's the home they're coming to. Thank you.
Miigwech. So with no further people at the mic.
There's two more.
Two more? Okay. Thank goodness you're there because I can't see behind this wonderful clan flag here.
Bonjour. Bujiki onene deshnakaj. Kajanang dunjaba jijak totem. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge all the chiefs in attendance and those instruments there, those sacred items. Growing up in the 60s, I'd never seen this until I was 35. And I come to understand who I am as an Anishinaabe. I'm very honored to be able to do my little bit here, smudging. And one of the things I come to is our ceremonies and how much I've seen in the last 20 years that I've been sober and learning. And one of the questions I have is, how many people are married? How many people got married in a church? To me, I did that once. And I had a ceremony done not too long ago with the woman that I love, Wasigishko Kwa. And Gordon performed that ceremony for me. And that it's the joining of two people to walk this way in a good way, to walk this road together. I would like to see that our chiefs try and do something to have that union recognized instead of going to a church. No disrespect to the church or other people's beliefs. It's one of the things I'm taught is to respect other people's beliefs or religions. But I would like to see those kind of things happen as our ceremonies are coming back to us. Had an opportunity to see a very sacred ceremony. Is that Gosknabigwenimi for the very first time 20 years ago. And to me, that was really something to see. Coming from where I came from, as a child not knowing anything, as a teenager lost in the drug and alcohol culture. And to go to that place and see that for the very first time, and I was just like, wow, they still do these primitive ceremonies. Maybe that's a little bit of ignorance on my part, but as I grew to love this way of life, this is what I love. Our traditional way of life, our ceremonies. And I believe it's really important to teach our youth, at a very young age. Last evening we had a sweat and there was a little baby in that sweat. he was just happy. You know, he went 3 rounds, and it was just great to see that little one in there. And a young lady who was walking with those water walkers, she came and sat with us also. So it's good to see our little ones walking with that water, the little quawag. And I had an opportunity last time Grandma Josephine come through this area, and I walked with them just that short distance from my home community to Amjanang. So the message I'm trying to say is we need to start teaching our little ones about this way of life, our culture. Miigwech.
Okay. I did say there was one more. I don't mind to overstep my role as co-chair. But I am an Anishinabek citizen. I did ask Gordon if it was be okay. Baju niga pe wanuk peneshiwak and disnakas tachi ni minwa gazir kandodum Nishnabe minwa denen dao amchinong and dunjaba. My mom's from here. She's Chippewa, and Liz Yellowman, Plain. And my dad's Ron Yellowman. And just as Darren just mentioned too, we know my dad was married traditionally to Martina Oswamick. Over the past few months, we've had a lot of issues within our family. Not technically, but due to the situation that we really need to move forward in those capacities, moving this Constitution and Chinaktagewan forward, and understanding what the citizenship law is. And I think I spoke before, too, in regards to how we should be securing those birth certificates through our nations as soon as those children, babies are born. And as well, we spoke a bit about that, too, as well, at the Child Wellbeing Conference. Knowing, too, as well, that there are ceremonies and rituals that take place when a baby is being decided or is coming into this world. And in that, I bring that up, too, as well, in regards to Ron Yellowman Ba and Martina, because we had family situations where my dad was Native American, Navajo, and that he, as we found out, was actually maybe a refugee here. He was not a permanent resident. He was not a Canadian citizen. But through our nation, through our communities, we accepted my dad in this community. He was, again, honored as an honorary band member here in the community. But he also went around to a lot of lodges, around a lot of homes. He went around to a lot of communities, participating and helping everyone whenever there was needed help. The situation of that was that Jean Henry Ba, too, as well, Darren Henry's mom, was looking to adopt my dad here in the community, but was stopped because of the membership code through the Indian Affairs. And again, that was also another huge consideration of like how those have to get transpired through the First Nation and through the BCR, and looking into that. But from the nation point of view, that's the situation that we're still facing. Because at the very top of it, the Grand Chief is your chief, your spokesperson. It's not even a chief, Ogima. And what's happening now in the world, right, is that the President of the United States, I'm not going to bother saying his name, but the President is looking into opening up the NAFTA again, North American Free Trade Agreement. And we need our voice there, just as I petitioned to you guys before on the water in Kettle and Stony Point and the Unity Gathering in 2005. And I'm glad you guys have moved forward with the Great Lakes Charter Annex since that time. But today is the same situation where we're seeing a lot of foreign policies push their agenda into our communities again, especially within these energy wars and discussions that are happening, especially with the nuclear, the fracking, the oil sands, the water. These are the times that some of those prophecies are coming forward, and we need our nation, our constitution, our Chinook Degawan, our chiefs to stand up and speak and get to those tables. As you've seen too, as recently in the news, is that a lot of the European countries are being less supportive of the President of the United States. And as well, not too sure what the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, as we heard earlier, a woodpecker, but it's the same formality of trying to get to those tables, especially if they are renegotiating that NAFTA agreement. Because that NAFTA agreement pertains to, again, the Mexico, United States, and Canada, and the Arctic. And we need to be there talking about either environmentally, economics, or social there too as well. Because, again, when you look at the GDP of these communities and these nations, they're bypassing us. And this is what you guys have been talking about over the years and trying to develop blueprints. And I think you guys should continue to move in those capacities and maybe even talk to other foreign leaders on this matter. Because when we decide to put our kids into that birth certificate system at the very start of being in Ontario, of being a Canadian citizen, we're as well then being that word of state. We're putting our kids in that word of to the crown and to that federal government. We're losing our kids at that point. And I'm not too sure where we are losing our voice to in that matter. Because from briefly what we've been hearing too as well with the nuclear talks is that it's a discussion about energy. Well, what about nuclear? Oh, what about the alternative energies, natural liquefied fracking gas? Or maybe it's the hydro, the runoff waters and the dams. Or maybe it's the other oil sands and the tar. These are the energies wars that we are speaking about and that were talked about before. And it's here. So I petition and I ask you guys, what's that next step? What are you going to do to go knock on those doors or to call other embassies and try to get our voice out there? Because when it comes to the next G7 or when it comes to other governmental affairs in the world, they're not going to be like trying to put the indigenous voice in there, because we know that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is not being effectively used. And we heard that even through Prime Minister Stephen Harper, even with Justin Trudeau, is that we don't have veto power on that, and that it's going back to the democracies of the dominions of Canada, which is, again, in regards to the pipelines, that's based on each of the provinces and the premiers. We need to be at those tables to share all this information, what all our citizens have been saying. So I'd just like to say miigwech. I didn't mean to step over my co-chair time, but yeah, just like to say miigwech. And the one thing I would like to also ask is that we look into our own national parks. Here in Anishinabek, we have species at risk, and we need to look at how we can preserve our own lands to protect all these species at risk that are going extinct, endangered, or on the special concerns list. That also goes back to Kosiwik, but we need to actually move forward on protecting our waters and our lands, and hopefully we can develop again and moving forward into our own national parks and setting aside a lot of this land before it gets developed, even within our own communities, having our own environmental assessment within our communities. Thanks very much.
Miigwech. So Grand Council Chief, I believe that's the chief circle, I will ask you for your comments. And for Gordon, Gordon was instrumental in ensuring that this becomes part of Grand Council.
Miigwech. We've been listening very hard, and this particular portion was very important about hearing from our citizens. It's probably one of the most, it was the most important part of this assembly as far as I'm concerned, hearing from our citizens that came here and also those that were on webcast. How when we're planning an assembly, it takes months of planning, and sometimes we can't think of everything. Our intention was, that we would do this so that we could webcast to those people that cannot come to this meeting. But we're now being asked, and rightly so, that when we have this kind of a forum, that we should go into the lodge, and that is the right thing to do. And when we have a lodge like we have outside here, we go into that lodge. Everyone is welcome in that lodge, and everyone is welcome to participate. And I guess the dilemma we're going to have is for those people that can't make it to the assembly. I guess that will really encourage you to come to the assembly. Or if you can't come to the assembly, maybe ask one of your friends to come and report back. It's been talked about community engagement here, and some of our processes that we've been engaged in that's been the most important element as well. When we developed the Bendaugjig, our citizenship law, people went out to the communities several times for that. We went out on the education thing, over 20 years of going to the communities. On the child well-being, they've been going out to the communities. So I just wanted to share that because it's not leadership specifically that is putting the content in these documents. The leadership directed that these happen, and we only operate based on the direction that the leadership gives us. But the content that goes into those things is so crucial that it comes from the communities. And as we do more and more of learning things like our clan teachings and the responsibilities that come with that, we're going to be putting in place Chinook Nagawans. We did the Anishinabek Nation Chinook Nagawan in Shagwenda probably about 8-9 years ago. And or was it 7? But it was about 7 years ago we did that. And we still haven't got all of our communities that have come on board with that. Much like we've been saying for years on the Eagle staff, there should be a feather there from every community. That's not been done yet. And there's lots of things we keep talking about, and I guess that's been one of the messages I've been trying to relay here, is that it's time to put some action into these things that we've been talking about. When the gentleman talked about that important ceremony about recognizing that bond between a man and woman, that's an important thing. And that should be done, in the Anishinaabe way. So, that those things need to be acknowledged. And, there's other things like traditional adoptions. All these things need to come under our laws, not some Johnny-come-lately governments that come here and dictate how things should be done. You know, these environmental issues that have been talked about, you know, I think so important. We're going to be speaking about these things yet here on the agenda, about the radioactive waste, aerial spraying, you know, the importance of protecting water, you know, looking at protecting the species. And we had a speaker yesterday talk about the invasive species that are also coming into our territories from, you know, the ballast of ships going through our territories, or people, tourists coming in and, you know, putting their boats in the water and draining the water out of their boats, and or the crud that's on their trailers that's getting into our lakes. There's lots of things that are have been talked about here, and you know, the issue of poverty. You know, yes, the young man was absolutely correct. We're not poor. You know, we're very rich people. You know, from who we are as Anishinaabe. We have got a lot of work to do, you know, to improve our lives with some of the factors that, you know, he talked about getting, you know, better housing and making sure nobody goes hungry, and, you know, ending the violence in our communities, protecting our women, you know, protecting our communities from the, you know, the drugs and alcohol crises that are in our communities. You know, everybody faces that. It's a shame, you know, to see that somebody, when Anishinabek was talking about how people are walking around looking like zombies because they're stoned out. And it brings to mind that show, The Walking Dead, because that's eventually what happens to them if they don't, they end up dead. You know, if they don't, you know, come out of that. And same thing with this radioactive waste and the storage of nuclear waste. You know, I've asked this question to the governments and then to these proponents that try to promote that. Would you put poison in your mother? You know, would you poison your mother? You know, how ridiculous and insane is that, thinking that, you know, man is stronger than nature. You know, and you talk to anybody that's worked in the mining industry, there's constant movement of Mother Earth down there, constantly. You know, there's a chief right over there that's worked in the mines. He'll tell you that Earth is always shifting and moving down there. And there is no man-made structure that could withstand that, whether it's concrete, steel, or whatever. Even the power of water. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist when you go around, just travel around. Look at the rock cuts on the highways where they've cut through the rock. You'll see water coming right out of the face of that rock. You know, that's how powerful water is. You know, water can shift the whole territory. I mean, you've seen it, right? You just saw it on the news the other day. Mudslide buried a part of a town. So, you know, if they think they can do this to Mother Earth, they're absolutely nuts. They're absolutely insane. And we've indicated we're not going to, you know, tolerate that coming through our communities. We've joined with the Iroquois Caucus, and we need to form alliances even with the non-native community. There's something like 170 municipalities that are opposed to this as well. So we have to create these alliances to stop this insanity. There's many issues that are being talked about here. You know, and it's good that we're sharing best practices. As we go forward, I think we're all on a learning curve as well. You know, the young man up in the corner talked about how it takes so long for somebody to go down that journey or that path of destruction. It also is going to take some time to get back healing. And it's the same thing like for our language, the loss of language. It's not going to happen overnight that we're going to get it back, but we got to begin that journey. But all of these issues, we've got to start moving on. And, we've all been talking about that here, about, I used the phrase there, we had the inspiration. The leadership said, let's move on these initiatives. And then we did the perspiration. We did the grunt work, going around talking to the communities, vetting this back and forth with the leadership. What we haven't done, the last thing, is implementation. So that's what we need to do. We have to implement a lot of the plans and ideas we're doing. It was talked about. These aren't even new ideas, some of the stuff that's been talked about. Like I've been coming around these forums for 41 years. I heard this stuff a long time ago. We need not be afraid to move. No one is doing anything in any of these forums, or there's no Anishinaabe that is going to harm another Anishinaabe. That's just the way Anishinaabe are. We're not going to do anything to harm each other. So we got to trust each other too. We got to have faith. I've seen our people are the most resilient, creative, innovative people that I've ever seen in my whole life. And we have to have the confidence to do things the Anishinaabe way. I've said this, when we're the frustration of dealing with these two levels of government, they expect us, they've been doing this work, so supposedly on our behalf. And just to use a figure, they do it, it costs them $1,000. When we take it over, we get $200 to do the same job. And we do more with the $200 than they did with the $1,000. So, and it frustrates me to no end, and I'll use an example. We're working on taking over child well-being, and we're going through the motions of trying to work with the governments, and even though going to the designation process is only an interim step. We've told them that right since day one. We want them right out of our way altogether, out of our way, not involved at all, because there's nothing that they can do for us. It's our responsibility to take care of our children. And so we have to go forward, thinking that way with all the confidence, but we have to step up to the plate as well, so that when something happens in our communities, right away we have the plans, whether it's the immediate family, the extended family, the community, to step up to the plate and make sure that children are protected. This Ibn Dagjijig, I think if anything, that's again probably the most important initiative we've got to put into practice here. Those that belong. That's what's dividing our people. We have these designations under the Indian Act is just craziness. You're an Anishinaabe. You're not a 6'1", a 6'2". We're saying that our people know who our relatives are. You know the lineage in your communities. It's up to us to determine who our citizens are. I've seen some crazy, boneheaded mistakes being made by the registrar's office. I'll give you a quick example. A man from my community lived there all of his life. His mother was from there. His dad was from another community. When he became an adult, he moved away to work because there wasn't any work in our area. Raised 7 children. When he retired, he wanted to come home. He had a choice to move to his dad's reserve, which was another community, or come back to our community, or he could have went to his wife's community. They got reinstated. He lost the status because his dad, under the Indian Act, in order to access alcohol, had to enfranchise. So when he got reinstated, they wanted to come home. He had 7 children, all adult children. The 2 adults asked to be reinstated into our community. For whatever reason, the registrar registered 3 of their children into our community, and the other 4, we don't know where they got registered. The three children, the adults, didn't ask to come into our community. That should have been their choice. So this is the kind of craziness that, and why only 3 out of the 7? Like, it doesn't make absolutely any sense. So it should have been up to, their choice, and it should have been up to our community to, determine who their citizens are. And those people were welcome back because we knew their lineage. That gentleman's mother lived to be, almost 100 years old. Lived in our community all those years. There was no question who they were. So we're learning a lot. We got so much more to learn, when we talk about these ways, which is the right way to do it. So when we have these circles in the future, and again, this was an attempt to make sure that people that couldn't come here could listen to these very important messages that the leadership has, but also important messages that people in the audience have, or people that are calling in by webcast. But I think if we do this down the road, we would probably do it in a lodge. That's the proper place for this kind of discussion. Because that's our identity. That's who we are as Anishinaabe. And you're going to see and hear more of the language in there, because that's how we got to learn. We got to listen. We got to hear the language. Like there's a lot of us here in this room that don't speak the language very well. Like I understand the language quite well, but I just can't speak all of it. I can speak a little bit. And so we have to learn. We have to hear it in order to learn it. So we want to really encourage, again, these forums to be an Anishinaabe forum, that we can listen, to everybody. So in the future, when we have our next year's Grand Council, that's probably what we're going to do, is put a lodge up. It's going to be hosted in the Superior region next year. We rotated among the different regions, so next year's assembly is going to be in the Northern Superior region. Location yet to be determined, but it will be in the Northern Superior for sure. So we got lots of work to do for the rest of the day. I'm going to leave it at that and turn this over to Gord.
When I was given instructions this morning, Grand Council Chief, Deputy told me this was the strongest talking stick. So with great respect, I just wanted to let you know that you did ask me to let you know when the water walkers were arriving, and they're going to arrive shortly. So however we want to, Gordon will give us instructions.
Get because much time gave me not go, gave me not numbers and gave me not give me the boat tribe. Get to give me not and gave me not give us a shag any as excuse. Get to give me not and can we gave me not got me the boss motto, get to give me not give me not doing done again here. Give me the Bobby school door gave me now, can I go gave me not and got me much much. Get the Gabina Nungus and Hagabina, give me easy time, no commander, Hagabina, Gashabu said me going Gina go. Maybe the gay gate was in the Gabina, Hagabina, give up the 4 dogs out again on. Ahami the Shre, Gabina, Nungus and Hagabina, Ganu Muck, Gabina or Gabina or the biggie saw next gay, Amiga, Numpane. Abdek gave me now, or gave me now, and the Abitus not again, or Vem seat gebe na go commissioner gebe na agenda we be we na kadabe. Aha miders gebe na nungusendo gebe na gispin susto it gebe na mavo ena da maget agenda. Kadasa ka swea na o gebe na go commissioner gebe na agenda be visit go singe. Ha gebe na we be national chaka so to gebe na o. Asna we is it again. Next time. Probably in circle. Gigo goeja benik. Amegwek. Geibina, ma bos kakame koe geibina Peter Bargeman. Gis ben geid wan sustamatwe. Einde goe, kagnagene wat susta zi ook kondak. Jaganas. Midus geibina nungoe. Geibina. We beter go snort en de. Questa qua sua nage. E je na de mage atige. Zo Bago ingi ken ma si gebe na o gamishu chigete gebe na giba mosset. Aha gebe na nende. Gebe na gashi tamagoing. Chigaming. Ik heb aan en dat kunnen zien, dan geven naar wemmersjong. Ik om de man, ik om de zonge. Wees ik om de man, niets, kan we om de zien aan. Aha, ik heb hem ieder schreeuw, geven naar mij, kwam de man ongeveer daar, geven naar, we hebben de gesnoten, geven naar, want de website. Dus dan is het ook appeltje. Mieke nang o stode geven na migi kamaga zokke. Je get geven na shoe mieken. Ja pietjen en de ba ook kondak. Je get geven na nan got nong geven na gawin, wa wisnes siukke. Kijk, ik heb in agonda ki apskeer, ik ben bezwaard ge. Dan goed nungo ge in ago taksko aan. Aha, mi man denje kidia. Kijk, ik heb in angine wawichi o gedingo denge. Kijk, ik heb in angine bagosa deshin. Kijk, ik heb in ge, ha heb in angitchene de makaperje. Aha, geef na je dan aan de magia te geven aan om een piska met koe geven na. Aku heb kort dagen ze atwe. Kijk toe, geef na o sheba. Aha, geef na gi meskapogne, we geven na gi men ram to kunda. Aha, geef na je. Mi go chunde nak.
What? Pat is gesonnen, aber ich pibing gern.
Gemak. Mio ja organ. Inhibition. Ook in de horen.
ska så. Y'all kanske nöjda här?
Yeah, they're over there, and then they're coming in right now. They already made their stop, and they're walking in. And big drum will be here at 11. The big drum. So to welcome them, we're saying if we could use your drum.
Så, vi ska ta vad vi ska.
Yeah.